you
That's
know.
harder. You know, my
Yeah,
my stuff works pretty well with it.
yeah. I mean, the people that I just don't know how they're managing are the lab people, because I can do a kind of bad approximation of a seminar class. But how do you approximate a laboratory experiment or a music lesson?
Or how do you show kids how to do weather casting against a green screen when you don't have a studio?
Yeah. But on the other hand, what's the alternative? Not to teach at all. So
Right.
we're just hanging in there.
Nancy, were you in school in May of 1970?
Mm-hmm. I was still in high school. Yeah.
Because I was telling people that, you know, I remember my college shutting down. I was in New Haven for the Black Panthers and a Yale rally, and came back and the school was shut down. And
yeah.
I wonder if anyone's ever studied what the impact was on grades and things like that.
Question. I don't know. I arrived the fall after the
hard time to go to school, but not as bad as arriving at Columbia in 1968, though.
Very, I'm sure that is oh, look at that, Pam. Wow, cool. Yeah. You are so good. Well, we have 14 people. This is pretty good.
Yeah. You know what my very favorite thing about teaching online is?
You don't have to get dressed up.
No, I can drink wine and teach.
Yeah, there are some advantages.
Has anyone been Zoom bombed yet?
Yeah.
I've been Zoom bombed when I've taught in Russia.
But I have colleagues who have been, so.
Yeah, I do too.
I have a colleague who gave a seminar by Zoom, and he's from India. In the middle of his talk, somebody started writing racist comments across his entire talk.
Amazing.
If you haven't seen it, Vice TV on Showtime last night had an incredible 15-minute report come documentary on what's happening in India with the Muslim minority. It was really quite riveting.
Yeah. I just did a interview with a podcaster in New Delhi about the pandemic because India was terrible in 1918, 1919, and it's shaping up to be really bad again. But I was very careful in my conversation with him because I figured I'd better be. He stayed away from politics entirely, and you know, yeah, I realized I needed to be careful what I said. Who knows who was listening to that?
Well, you could take a pretty good guess at who was listening.
Yep. Pam, do you see any of our
I do,
report givers online yet?
I do not. We have 39 participants, but I don't.
That's very good. Okay.
I want to see if Michael's going to be as good as the Queen was last night.
Did you
That-
watch it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I'm
I
a
gotta
big,
go get it on YouTube.
I'm a very big fan of the BBC, and so I watch a lot of BBC. And boy, you know, I'm not a monarchist, but I really thought she did an excellent job.
I read in the paper this morning that she's done this on only a handful of occasions, have this kind of special address. But I'm sure with Boris Johnson in the hospital, that seemed like a smart thing to do.
You know, well, it was well written, well delivered, extremely well shot. And, you know, I think the fact that she intervened really did give people an uplift and a positive feeling. And boy, they're getting clobbered there too. And they started late.
Yeah. Okay.
56 participants.
So I'm going to wait another minute or two.
Charlie's here.
Mhm.
It looks like Minghua is.
Oh my gosh.
Well
Boris
done.
Johnson just got moved to intensive care. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I know
Well,
Michael's
clear-
talking in.
Clearly, they weren't telling
I
us
know.
how sick he was.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere
Well,
we have to sign in for the meeting, or you just see that we're members here, or?
Mhm.
Okay.
To be honest, we are being trustful that this link is being used in a.
Okay,
in
I just wanted to make
appropriate
sure I didn't need to, now I'll mute my microphone again.
way. And we will get a participant list at the end. I can start. It's 3:30, so I'll just start by saying we have no idea how this is going to work. We hope for the best because we think it's important that we continue to practice shared governance during this crisis. So we're going to do the best we can. We're going to try to deal with the most important issues that we need to, but also have this meeting as a way to just update people on the latest information and give you a chance to ask questions. So
There's a question already on the chat.
there's a question already on the chat. Yes, so it's from Oleg. The meeting is being recorded and we will have a transcript, and when it's finished uploading to the cloud, you can you'll be able to download it and listen to it. Oh, this is great. Now I'm seeing lots of people. Hi. But yes, and I see them now. President's Conference Room is coming on. There's Minghua. Hello. It is really like Brady Bunch. Oh, I like the basketball arena. That's cool. I get to see your backdrops. This is my Aunt Betty. I inherited from my Aunt Betty, the only member of my family who ever talked to me about the Spanish flu. So it's in her honor. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and try to get this party started. Pam showed you the agenda. Do you want to show them that again? We did make some revisions to the agenda that you all saw, mostly to move up the two consequential pieces of business that we need to conduct here, or the report, discussion, and vote on the resolution about stopping the tenure clock. So can I have, this is gonna be really weird. Maybe you could just.
Yes, Nancy, I move that we accept the tentative agenda.
Yeah, and can I have a second?
I
I'll
second it.
second that.
Thank you. Thank you. We also need to approve the March 2nd minutes, which Pam circulated last week. Can I have?
Nancy, this is Jonathan. I read the minutes. They look fine to me. I move we approve them.
Okay. Second?
This is Kevin, I second.
Thank you. I forgot to say all in favor. All in favor. Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Most people are on mute.
That's right. But okay, if you want to dissent, you can send me a chat. But I think you lost. Okay. So I do have a prepared statement that has some information of importance. So let me find it and read it. Okay, so this is my report. I want to start by thanking all of you for your flexibility and patience in moving our Senate work online for the rest of this semester. And I particularly want to thank the chairs and members of the standing committees who are continuing to do their work online. So one of the issues that the University Senate still has to face is the fate of our spring elections. Before spring break, I had ready the University Senate President's annual call for nominations for empty seats on our various standing committees, and also slots for senators at large. And I was working in concert with Peter Coast and our counterparts in the Arts and Sciences Senate. And we were planning to send out a nomination form and ask you to volunteer or to nominate colleagues to volunteer, and then have the online ballot vote as usual in May. But after talking it over, in light of the many challenges we face just getting through the rest of the semester, the University Senate Executive Committee is reconsidering the timing of our elections. There are two big concerns here. First, with so much to do in order to provide distance learning and otherwise cope with the disruption of everyone's lives, this is a very bad time to try to recruit people to any kind of university service. Second, due to the pandemic, we have still been unable to fill the SL2 position, the Senate Administrator, that will give us a professional.
Setting that YouTube. I couldn't see anything. Okay. The cheese.
Yeah.
Nancy, you need to unmute.
I'm not muted. Or if I've been muted, someone did it without my consent. All right.
That would be me. I like the power. Oh, sorry. Here we go. It's not.
I sent it to everybody.
No, I know, but I have to get the note out.
No, they just said, okay, I was struggling to write this letter. I kind of couldn't understand why. And then I thought, well, maybe it's better like people learning with what we have.
Everyone please mute themselves. Everyone please mute themselves.
Table now that I have it in front of me.
So
I said, I don't think
you mute everyone, and then I'll try to.
Well, I said, although I realize we're not hungry, which is fine. I said, but we're not really.
Who is technically running this meeting? Control of the Zoom.
You know, need to update it because
I have no idea. So I'm going to try to talk over this until we figure out who it is and get them off.
Sorry, right back.
Okay.
Morning. Well,
As
for the support line. I don't care. You know,
Whoever opens the meeting can mute everyone and then unmute Nancy.
writing back to me, I said, however, everything, if you realize, everything you just mentioned is in the chat.
I can still hear this
Nothing
person.
of what
Can
you're
you?
saying is current. And I said, so again, what am I putting in the letter? What am I putting in this letter? If everything is not current. I said,
The host
Nancy, you're the host, so please go in and mute everyone.
It doesn't. I said, so I also don't want to bring attention to something that really should be out back right now. So my gut right now is leave everything alone.
Person by person.
And kind of quality go. So I
still haven't gotten to whoever it is, and there's 6 pages of this.
You can mute the whole crowd.
Actual, I've done that, and it's not working.
Okay, sorry.
The person who is talking is highlighted in the gallery view with a block around them. So then you can pick that one person and mute them. A host can pick that one person and mute them.
Yes, this involves me going through 6 screens, and I'm still not seeing who it is. This is bizarre.
Nancy, you could also ask everyone to mute themselves except you.
I tried that. Could everyone mute themselves, please?
Yes, the problem is they're not listening.
Yeah.
We could meet in person.
All right.
Jeff Barnett, your mic is on and it's got background noise. I can see that.
Who is it?
Jeff Barnett.
Okay, I think it's gone. Hallelujah. Thank you. Okay. Where was I? So I was saying that we do not have a professional staff member to help us with the labor in preparing the ballot. And as Pam and I discovered last year, there is a lot of work that goes into fact checking, getting ID numbers, and otherwise making sure that ballots show up in people's solar accounts. We managed to do this last year because we had a very able temp, but doing that work now under lockdown, even with the valuable service of Liz Fish, who is helping us out, would be very difficult. So in recognition of these challenges, the executive committee proposes the following. First, that we go ahead with the election in May by electronic ballot of the 3 statewide senators that we need to send to the SUNY University Faculty Senate. And do this online. And we have talked to the DoIT staff, and they say they can manage that for us. We will also have an election at the May Zoom meeting for the position of Secretary Treasurer of the University Senate, a position that is being left vacant by Pam Wolfskill, who's decided not to run again. Luckily, we have succeeded, as I'll repeat later when we get to that part of the meeting. A very excellent person, Sarah Battaglia, has agreed to run for that position. So we will set up, we can vote through the poll function so that we can hold the in-person election for Secretary Treasurer in May. Everything else we are suggesting that we postpone, and that includes the call for nominations and vote on nominees until the early fall, when hopefully things have returned to normal. Our new president, Richard Larson, would then send out the call in early September. We'd have a short nomination period of maybe 2 weeks, and then the vote would be held in late September so that we would have new members in place by the October meeting of the University Senate. We feel like we need to get your approval for this plan, you being the members of the University Senate. I'm not going to ask you to discuss or vote on this at right now because we have other pressing business to get to, but we will be sending you a simple poll asking you to say yes or no to the idea of delaying elections until early September. So we think this is not great, but it is a better way forward than trying to do all the elections and online ballots under such difficult circumstances. Well, I'm not going to ask for questions. You can send them to me. I'm not going to answer them now. Instead, I want to move on to item 4 of the revised agenda, which is a report, discussion, and vote on the resolution regarding stoppage of the tenure clock. Fred Walter is going to, you see here, that's number 4, that was revised. You were all sent a copy of the resolution in advance. Fred, can I get you to unmute yourself and give us a brief report on this resolution and why it was unanimously supported by the Executive Committee of the Arts and Sciences Senate and the University Senate?
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me.
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
These are indeed trying times, and we're all trying to figure out the best way to get through this. One of the groups of our friends who are most affected by this are the junior faculty, who are seeing a semester basically or more disappearing in front of their eyes. We are spending lots of time revising syllabi, learning how to teach online, closing down our labs, in their case, taking care of their children, just learning how to live differently. And it is extraordinarily disruptive to the life of a faculty member. And, you've only got 6 years or 5 years to prove yourself. And when you lose a semester or more, that is significant. So everybody's concerned about this. I know the provost's office is concerned about this. The union is concerned about this. And we, the faculty, are concerned about this too. Let's see, let me get the right document up here. I need 2 or 3 screens here to work from my home office. So the Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs, Srita Bhatia, is chairing an academic affairs action group as part of the Provost's Emergency Academic Affairs Task Force. And they have come up with a document that basically says that we're going to extend the tenure clock for faculty who are currently in their first 5 or so years. Anybody who would be notified of their permanent appointment on the 1st of September 2021 or later is subject to this. We want to extend the clock. The only way this can be done through our contract is if you take a maternal or paternal leave, which is not suitable for everybody, or by reducing to 99% time, taking a qualified position, and losing some of your salary, your location pay, and things like that. This is something we should not be asking people to do in these times. Independent of that, the Faculty Rights and Responsibilities Policy Committee of the Arts and Sciences Senate was debating this. We adopted much of the verbiage of the report from the Provost Task Force and put it into this resolution, which you should have in front of you. Well, you've seen it anyways. You can read the whereases yourself. The important part of this resolution is the resolves. Therefore, be it resolved that an extraordinary 1-year extension of the tenure track be automatically extended to all current junior faculty who are scheduled to be notified of their permanent appointment on or later than, oh, I've got a typo in there, I'll fix that, 1 September 2021. Be it further resolved that faculty impacted by this extension may opt out and choose to remain on their original schedule. This was adopted by the Faculty Rights and Responsibilities Policy Committee. I think the Arts and Sciences Senate adopted it, but Peter can correct me if I'm wrong. The Executive Committee of the University Senate has adopted it, and we're putting this out to the full Senate for adoption. We look at this as a no-brainer. The main reason for doing this, other than to express what should be expressed, is to provide support to the provost, because this has to go up to Albany. This is a decision that is not made at Stony Brook. This is a decision that is made in Albany. It requires a change in the policies of the Board of Trustees, at least temporarily. So we're asking for your yes vote to give ammunition to our administration to do what is right. Over.
Okay, thank you. Maybe if there are any brief questions, but we'd like to keep it brief because we have all our reports.
As the provost, provost, Senate is the Senate. If you're not a Senate, get president.
There's a question from Axel.
哎，不要在我这里咳嗽什么的。
Axel, whoops, sorry.
Voting yes.
What?
I'm voting yes.
Oh, okay. If there's,
I have a quick comment. May I speak? My name is Jeff Hines.
Yeah.
Just representing the union's academic council, which is made up of faculty members who are in the union who are interested in these kinds of things. We reviewed this proposal also over a week ago, and we unanimously supported it. I think it's exactly the right thing to do, and I hope the provost and Stony Brook have success in Albany with it. I just wanted to make that clear. Thanks.
Okay. So,
Nancy, it's Jonathan
Yes.
Sanders. I think this is excellent. The only thing I think I would add to Fred's good work here is perhaps we could get the incoming president to endorse or support this to give the interim provost even more power behind his appeal to Albany.
okay, I'm point noted. I'd like to move ahead and go ahead, and there is a poll. So now, Pam,
Nancy,
yes,
you can.
I'm trying.
Okay.
Okay, back to you. Here it comes. Pam is going to send everybody on the call a poll. I'd ask you, if you're not a senator, not to vote.
Interesting spelling for abstain, Pamela.
Oh, Ed, picky.
I'm going to give it a little longer. I think we could say this is overwhelming support in favor.
I'm not used to working from a little computer monitor. My eyes are not what they used to be.
Somebody asked a question on the chat.
Go ahead, Katie. You were delegated to cast your vote.
I think I lost my poll. Can it be sent again when I sent the chat question?
I think probably we'll just add you.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, this is, we're not going to have the election commission come in and review these. I'm going to call it at this point and say that was a resounding show of support, and we will forward that, share that proposal with Sarita and all concerned. So at this point, I'd like to hand off first to the President's conference room Pam, can you see where they are?
Yep, got it.
Can I ask?
Oh, yes, Peter. Yeah.
I don't want to muddy the waters. Feel free to say no. The graduate students are equally under this problem. Extending time limits to dissertation for them would mean nothing if we didn't also extend support. Is there some mechanism that would allow us to say, you'll get another term's TA-ship, RA-ship, whatever, so that they can finish their dissertations?
So I think we need to raise that with the graduate council and ask them, oh, well, and there's Eric, but I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that now because we've got 4 reports coming. Maybe we could, Eric, bring that up at the May meeting. Because
sure. No, I can quickly just say though that I absolutely agree with Peter, and we're working on figuring out anything we can. But at this point, it's really hard for us to project out and map out the budget responsibly. So, but absolutely trying to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm going to hand it over to Michael Bernstein to give a report. So the plan is that each of our 4 senior administrators will give a report about 10 minutes. We'll have a short Q&A after each one, and then what time we have left, we'll stay online to answer more questions. So Michael, are you ready to commence?
I am Nancy. I hope everyone can hear me well.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone is safe and well. To state the obvious, our current state of affairs have changed dramatically since our last Senate meeting and since my last report. I want to start off by saying a few words of thanks and then give you some summary information, and then conclude my report accordingly. First, let me express sincere thanks to Carol Gomes, the CEO of our hospital, Peggy McGovern, who is in charge of our clinical operations, and Ken Kashansky, our senior vice president, for their leadership at Stony Brook Medicine at the hospital during an incredibly difficult time. They're the true heroes every day. And I also want to acknowledge Fred Skanga and his team at the Vets Home, all of these colleagues and their team. I also deeply appreciate the efforts of Judy Greiman right here in the administration building, with Larry Zacharies, who's head of our emergency operations, leading our, if you will, command center. And I also want to acknowledge Laura Lindenfeld, Eric Lambert, Charlie Robbins, Eric Wertheimer, all of whom have been providing considerable operational support under the guidance of our provost as we navigate these new educational terrains. And I also want to call out Patricia Sevis at CELT and Charlie McMahon, our interim chief information officer. They've all risen to the occasion, as has the entire academic leadership, faculty, and staff. I also want to acknowledge Marissa Bisiani and Rick Gatteau and their teams in student affairs and student health. Their work's been crucial to whatever success we've had in dealing with this emergency on our campuses. And of course, Nicholas Scabetta, Lauren Shepro, Callie Chan, and their teams have all worked very hard to maintain communications, which have been of such crucial importance, both internal and external, again, as we navigate pretty remarkable terrain. Susan Blum and the legal team have had to deal with an array of, a seemingly endless array of legal and regulatory issues. They've done that successfully. And I want to also call out Kathy Byington, Lynn Johnson, Carmen Gonzalez, Dean Tufts, all in finance and administration for their work on HR, facilities, procurement, and financial matters. And ultimately, it's the faculty and the staff who, along with our students, have literally moved mountains. And in the final analysis, it's our students at all levels of instruction, undergraduate, graduate, and professional, who've been resilient, thoughtful, creative as we've addressed this emergency and resumed instruction in the spring semester. I cannot name everyone. I've probably overlooked a few people. Forgive me if I've overlooked you and you felt I should have done so. I'll make amends to you at some point, but I can't do it right now. And just to share some interesting data with you, this has been compiled by our information technology team. As of today, since the end of March, we've had close to 7,000 Zoom meetings occurring on our platforms, over 113,000 participants in those meetings. Yes, we're double counting there, of course, and about 4.8 million minutes of meetings. So just to give you a sense of all the Zooming we've been doing, on Blackboard right now, we have close to 4,000 active Blackboard classes. And looking at Echo 360, almost 46,000 hours of lecture videos have been watched through the month of March, about 2,200 student users, 8,300 student interactions. You get the drift here, huh? 19,000 total videos, 2 million total views. Again, you can see what's been going on the video and digital platforms on which we operate. Just another example of how the faculty, staff, and students have risen to the occasion and have achieved something remarkable in a very short period of time. So let me conclude by giving a summary of some of the noteworthy actions, and then I'll conclude with some remarks and open for questions, or however you want to manage this, Nancy, you'll decide. Our noteworthy actions: we've developed websites both on campus and in the hospital to address informational needs with respect to this emergency. An extensive and growing set of FAQs are up online for students, staff, faculty, parents, patients, and the community. We've been operating a triage site in the commuter parking lot as a way of reducing volume in our emergency department at the University Hospital. We've managed a COVID testing site for Suffolk County in the commuter parking lot as well. We are working with the Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA, and the state of New York to construct and ultimately operate what would be at its largest a 1,000-bed field hospital. Some of you, I'm sure, have seen this construction underway on the north side of our campus. We have moved almost 9,000 students off the campus while managing a large international and a relatively smaller domestic population that remains on campus, dealing with the custodial, food service, and other vendor needs of this group, attending to their safety and security. And we've also been doing this as we manage refunds and other additional costs for those students who left residence. We've been handling a set of visa and immigration issues for our international students to allow them to maintain the ability to continue their studies in a non-residential setting. We've created an infrastructure for a major decontamination facility for PPE and other important equipment for our medical crews. This decontamination facility will service all area hospitals, including our own. It's been created by Battelle, our partners at Brookhaven National Laboratory. We've increased our hospital bed capacity significantly to meet the needs of the state and the region, as patient demand obviously has been skyrocketing as we reach the zenith of this pandemic in our region. We've shut down elective clinical care, resulting in a significant revenue loss to our hospital and our clinical operations. But at the same time, we've been operating at a higher and higher level on behalf of those most grievously affected by this pandemic. We've created a quarantine site on our Southampton campus to house and manage quarantine for SUNY study abroad students. We've developed other campus quarantine facilities in our residence halls that are allowing us to meet the needs for COVID positive and other exposed members of the community. We have, as I've just mentioned, moved the university to a fully online academic program in just over 2 weeks and developed supporting operations for faculty and students. We've shut down all international, out-of-state, and local in-person enrollment activities, which has resulted in a disruption of our normal student enrollment activities, but we're trying to pursue through virtual and other online activities to secure appropriate enrollment of a new class. There's been some news coverage about that you might have recently seen. We have had to shut down most of our research operations. Most of you are well aware of that. We are addressing promotion and tenure issues as evidenced by your own resolution, which has just been passed. We've developed and we're running a significant operation to accept donations of PPE and other safety equipment for our hospital employees, for computers and iPads, for both online instruction and for increased use of telemedicine and other supportive video activities. And we have also secured increasing donations of food for our hospital workers and staff and comfort items for our patients who obviously have limited visitation with their family and loved ones, one of the truly brutal aspects of this epidemic, which I know you're aware of. We have shut down all arts, cultural, and athletic activities on the campus. We are developing virtual and later in-person commencement activities. I put out a message to the university community about this recently. We have moved online a variety of employee wellness programming, ombudsperson activities, employee assistance program services, and other student support services. And we have been working to develop a series of innovative responses to this crisis, including the manufacturing of face shields on 3D printers. This has been spearheaded by our iCreate lab, by faculty and students there. Hand sanitizer has been produced by our chemistry department, and our engineering teams, in association with medical leadership in the hospital and with support from the School of Health Technology and Management, are trying to develop new ventilator technologies and so-called splitting of ventilators. Our physics department has also been involved in that to try and meet the material and equipment challenges of this epidemic. We're fighting a war, to state the obvious, and I'm just going through all of this information to give you a sense both of the complexity of marshaling our efforts to meet this war and also the incredible teamwork that's going on at our university in this regard. Let me close by also saying, in light of the announcement of our new president, Maury McGinnis, who will be coming on board formally in July, Maury is fully engaged with the leadership team. She and I are fully engaged with one another. We are Zooming constantly with each other and texting and emailing as well. I know Maury as a fellow provost. I have actually done some work with her at UT Austin. I'm delighted to be working with her as she transitions into her new role. I'm looking forward to what will be literally a seamless transition. And I'll conclude my remarks by saluting all of you in the Senate. I call upon all of you to be strong, to be brave, to be safe most of all, and to be healthy. And I wish you all the best as we continue to work through all of the unique challenges associated with this emergency. And I think I will stop there, Nancy, and put the meeting back in your hands. I will mute for the time being.
Okay, so 5 minutes. Do we have questions from the floor? If you could put up your little blue hand. I have helpers, so I see Ed Feldman.
Alec Lewis.
Yeah, okay, let me start with Ed.
Hi, Michael. Hi, everybody. Thank you for your report. I know our priority right now is obviously the health of our community, students, faculty, and staff. But I've also heard Cuomo talk about the fact that the state is now broke. So I'm curious down the road when we get to budget items, do you have any idea yet, Michael, what the impact of the state being broke is going to have on our campus community?
No.
I don't blame you. I get it.
Okay.
So Ed, fundamentally, no. We are right now. Our task, with respect to finance and administration, of course, is to track our costs, to track our expenses. We're reporting this to state authorities as they request. We will do our best to secure where we can and as we can the appropriate reimbursements and support. I was just on the phone earlier with a member of the Stony Brook Foundation Board about this very issue. But at the moment, I don't have details for you other than to say that we're gathering as much information as we can, and we will do our best to secure as much reimbursement as we can, and of course, ultimately, to manage our budgets through what will be a very, very difficult year for all the obvious reasons.
Thanks.
Okay, Alec Lewis.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Hi, yeah. I'm Alec Lewis. I'm the assistant news editor at The Statesman. I have a question regarding commencement. So after you published your letter that revealed that the commencement would be on May 22nd and it would be virtual, a bunch of seniors called kind of the virtual commencement a slap in the face because obviously they won't be able to walk down and get their diploma. Has the reaction from seniors changed Stony Brook University's plans for commencement at all? And are you also maybe considering doing an actual commencement maybe further into the summer or into early fall, just so seniors can kind of walk down and get their diploma in a formal manner?
At present, our most immediate focus is on the virtual event on May 22nd itself. The commencement office will be assessing possible alternatives, and we're gaining input through, as I mentioned in my message, the USG and GSO leadership. We will do our best in terms of both managing student hopes and goals and managing through this situation. I will say the overwhelming response to my message last week, obviously an understandable response of disappointment, but also of understanding. This is not a slap in the face. This is protecting our community and indeed doing what's best for all of us at the university and in the wider communities we serve. And I think the vast array of our students, faculty, and staff understand.
All right, and I have another question.
Could you, can you come back because there are other people ahead of you? In the,
of course.
Yeah, okay. Josh, do now. Just put your hand back up. Yeah. Josh?
Hi, how are you? This is Josh Dubnow. I have a question about the online education. So, obviously it was a scramble for everyone to sort of switch to online only education, which was completely necessary. My question is whether there's a commitment from the administration to return to full face-to-face education as we had previously, as soon as the public health crisis has receded.
Josh, I would say that we are committed to trying to get back to normal when we can and as we can. I think all of us recognize that normal is going to look very different from anything we've been used to up till now. What that means in terms of face-to-face instruction, hybrid instruction, online instruction, I wouldn't presume to know the answers to all of that. And in fact, at the school and college levels, I would expect the academic leadership will do a lot of soul searching and assessment of what they think that new normal can and should be. Obviously, right now, we really don't know what the next few months looks like. We're trying to get through the zenith of this crisis here in New York, and then hopefully start to see the other side of this hill.
Okay, Fred?
That, Michael. Yogi Berra once said it's difficult to make predictions, especially about the future. So I don't know what, like you said, we don't know what the new normal is going to be, but we want to know when we're going to know what the new normal is going to be. When are we going to learn what the fall semester is going to be like? Do you have any type of a deadline?
I don't have a specific deadline at the moment. I think we're all aware, certainly we're aware here in the administration building, but I know in conversation with the provost and with some of the deans, I'm aware that there's a desire to have some more information about fall semester in the next couple of weeks at the outside. We're waiting to see literally how we transit this zenith, but that epidemiologists tell us will occur within the next, I guess, 10 to 15 days. I think at the moment, we're proceeding with planning for, quote, a normal fall semester on schedule. But I think we all know that what we experience in the next few days, the next couple of weeks, will start to determine what our practical planning will be. And as soon as we know that, we'll start communicating about it and working with the academic leadership to implement. Obviously, all of us would like to see us start, quote, a normal fall semester on time next fall.
Okay, this is the last question from Alec.
Hi. So the Suffolk County COVID-19 case map shows that Stony Brook University has 21 confirmed cases. Could you give an update on these cases? Are they students? Are they isolated in their dorms? Are any of them in the hospital? Can you give us any information about these 21 cases?
I'm sorry, I cannot. Those data are compiled by the medical leadership in the hospital, and I don't have them. I don't have them available at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so next we're going to hear from Judy Greiman, who's running away.
So I guess I was asked to talk about the budget, which would mean the state budget as passed by the legislature, which I can zip through. I didn't do my usual PowerPoint and sharing screens and all that. I'm just going to sort of hit some highlights. So the budget was completed at the end of last week. On time only if you count stopping the clock to be on time. And while the state was experiencing a significant gap before COVID hit, it's experiencing a way more significant gap now. And so the budget that passed, which actually isn't that much different in terms of overall dollar amount from what the governor's original proposal was, it is unique in one regard, which it has provided significant, broad authority to the governor for 3 distinct time periods over the course of the next year to take a look at whether tax revenues are lower than expected, state spending is higher than expected, or certain COVID-19 costs are impacting the budget in profound ways, and to make cuts. So anything that one sees in the budget today may not be that same budget in the next quarter. And the cuts are supposed to be across the board to the extent practicable. There is I will tell you, this is extraordinary power that the legislature actually granted away from them, because often in these cases, you'll have the governor able to make, I'm talking generically, you'll have a governor able to make some cuts up to a percentage, and then it swings back to needing legislative approval. But while the legislature has a right, I think, to step in for certain reasons, it's pretty much to the DOB and the governor to do this review and make the determinations. It's really significant to have that kind of language in any budget. And so, again, whatever's in the budget that I'm telling you today, that could change 3 different times over the course of the coming year. So on some key, what I call non-higher ed, non-hospital items, there were a bunch of things that, some of them what I call sort of social issues, and others not, that passed. And so I'll just hit a few highlights. There's a big press to modify the criminal justice reform bills that were passed last year, and some changes were made mostly giving judges a broader authority to set bail on additional crimes. There were also modifications to laws related to discovery that were passed last year. Prosecutors are going to have 20 days instead of 15 to turn over some initial discovery. Became important because there were some details, including witness names and things that were sometimes not a good thing to be giving to the defense at that early time in an investigation. And so that was changed. Legalization of paid gestational surrogacy, legalization of e-bikes and e-scooters, establishment of mandatory 5 to 7 paid sick days for all employees, a ban on flavored vaping, a ban on single-use polystyrene products, prohibition on gender-based pricing. So those are some of the what I'll call social issues. Legalization of marijuana did not make it into the budget. K-12 received it's sort of a governor made a proposal, then there was going to be something of a cut, and then the federal government is bringing aid to K-12. So in the end, K-12 really got an increase, I guess I would say. There was no change in how K-12 money is allocated, which had originally been proposed by the governor, and there can be pandemic adjustments to school district allocation based on how much additional aid a district might receive from federal funds. So I think what that really means is if the feds give you a lot, you may see your state money cut if you're in terms of Medicaid, I'm about to get to Stony Brook, but in terms of Medicaid, the session really began with a significant gap in the New York State Medicaid budget. That was really the significant thing that people were talking about before all this happened. And a Medicaid redesign team was convened. They were charged with finding $2.5 billion in savings. They issued a series of recommendations. Most of those recommendations were actually enacted, but with a delayed date. And the reason for that is that some of the federal aid can only come to New York if we do not make a change in our Medicaid program. And so I think there continues to be a little discussion between the state and the feds about this issue. But in the meantime, the legislature at least passed some of those recommendations and just said, we'll start it later, with the goal being get the federal money and then make changes. Our biggest concern for our hospital was that disproportionate share payments might get cut. They were not cut. And so that is money that we get for under and uncompensated care. And that is the number that we were watching, frankly, even more than the Medicaid numbers. And so that wasn't cut. But I think that Medicaid continues to be a really volatile part of this budget. In terms of Stony Brook operating, couple of highlights. So the tuition authorizations that the governor proposed, in essence, sort of another SUNY 2020, only with regard to tuition. He had proposed doing 5 years of up to $200 that the SUNY board could do, which was a way that under SUNY 2020, it allowed institutions and families to plan. They knew what the top number was going to be. The legislature rejected that 5-year, which really only means, which essentially, it doesn't really mean that much, frankly, because for this coming year, there's already an existing authorization for up to $200 that SUNY will or will not grant. And then tuition will become a subject matter next year. So it's not that there's tuition frozen for future years, it just doesn't, there's no authorization, and they'll re-up the authorization or they won't in future years. Opportunity programs were funded at the same levels as last year. There's often a kind of dance between the governor and the legislature around opportunity programs, but the governor did not propose a cut, and the legislature therefore didn't have to use their funds to fix that. So they're funded at level. The hospital subsidy, which last year was removed from the state budget, continues to be removed from the state budget. Again, the dish payments reflects the dish funding reflects the required dish reimbursement match, which is a good thing. We were seeking a third or fourth round of National Cancer Institute designation funding. We've received it over the last couple of years. We didn't get it this year. We will go back at it next year, but frankly, a lot of these, what I'll call smaller member items, were not funded this year. On the economic development side, the governor had made a major proposal to change the way CATs and COEs, Centers of Excellence, were both structured and funded, and the legislature rejected that change. They did slight cuts to both CATs and COEs, but they didn't do a major cut, and they didn't kind of merge them all together. Startup New York was authorized through 2025. The regional economic development councils were funded at another $150 million, and campuses are eligible to apply, so that's a good thing. In terms of our capital budget, we secured $9 million from the stadium. So we had $9 million that was for an additional expansion of our stadium, which is not something that we expect to do in the near term. And so that money has been redirected to the construction of the engineering building. We maintain last year's critical maintenance funding level, and we'll have an additional chunk of funds that will be eligible to receive from SUNY. We did fairly well last year in getting those funds, and I think that SUNY understands some of our particularly major projects that are on the board in the coming years, Javits and Chem and things like that, and so I think we'll do fairly well again. Stony Brook Hospital received another round of $50 million in capital funding. Good news, bad news, because good news, they have it. Less good news is that currently the SUNY hospitals are the only state buildings for which the state does not pick up debt service. So our goal is to continue to try and get the state to pick up the debt service for the hospital, which would be an operating budget help. So they would both have the capital to spend on projects and have operating relief if the state picks up the debt service. So we continue to work on that. Big news is that the legislature created a $200 million capital matching program for SUNY for major renovations and new construction at SUNY campuses. Every dollar of campus raised funds will leverage $2 of state capital support up to this $200 million for I think it's still limited at a year. SUNY is charged with developing a plan to how this whole thing works. So we don't have any of the details because SUNY, hasn't had the opportunity yet to put those details together. But frankly, there are very few campuses, I think, who are going to be ready to roll in a way that Stony Brook will be ready to roll. So personally, I'd like to scoop up all that $200 million, but go for it, Kathy and Deborah. So that's kind of the long and short on the shortest I've probably ever done on the state budget.
Okay, so we have time for a few questions. Little blue hands want to pop up.
I have a question.
Jonathan, is that Jonathan?
Yes, it is. Judy, could you or Michael perhaps say something about the implications of this temporary hospital that's being built? I'm particularly intrigued that I read in one place that the federal government had a contract with Turner Construction for $50 million. Is that right for this building? I'm interested in both its subsequent fate and if the monies that are being allocated for that would count towards the $200 million being invested on a campus.
So short answer to your last part is no. They would not be counted under the $200 million. It's campus raised for campus projects. And frankly, having a large tent in our field is not really the campus project that we would be going for. I don't know the exact amount of the Turner contract because it's obviously not our contract.
And is there some provision so that when it's done, that there's something will be useful out of this for Stony Brook?
When it's done, they will have to get everything gone and fix our fields.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Tom? Tom Wilson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just a quick note. I actually, being campus COVID essential, I actually drove past, and it's quite impressive what they're doing, but I would say that the designs are not designed to last for very long. So I don't think there's any possibility that it could be used for any long-term purpose.
Okay. Alec?
Hi. Yeah, the budget includes the Accelerated Renewable Energy Growth and Community Benefit Act. I'm just wondering, this act speeds up permitting and construction of renewable energy projects, or climate change projects, stuff like that. I'm wondering if Stony Brook will benefit from anything in this act.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It may, likely could, but we'll have to take another look at it.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to ask Minghua now to present his report, our interim provost. Here he comes.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Minghua.
So first of all, I want to thank all the faculty and the staff for their extraordinary efforts to accomplish the rapid transition to massive online teaching in the university. The overall feedbacks from students and the faculty after the first week are overall positive, despite that many faculty had never taught an online course before. There were two glitches last week. One is with Blackboard due to insufficient memory on the server, and the other, as many of you know, the Zoom bombing. And these glitches were dealt with and managed immediately after they occurred. I want to thank Charlie McMahon and Patricia Asilis, as well as their teams, for their incredibly timely and effective support. As President Bernstein mentioned, during this period of crisis, I have asked Lola Littlefield, Dean of the School of Journalism, to lead a Provost Emergency Management Task Force. Lola is joined by Charles Robbins, Vice Provost for Undergraduate Education, and Eric Wurzmeier, Dean of Graduate School. Together, they are helping to guide the emergency meetings of the deans. This task force is charged with making policy recommendations related with academic affairs during this crisis. Currently, we have the following action groups to address particular areas of issues: lab courses, online exams and assessment, technologies, faculty affairs. That's the action group that discussed the tenure policy Fred brought to the Senate earlier. Graduate affairs, that's the group that will address the graduate student support mentioned also earlier. Research policy and academic implications, clinical affair issues, and then online pedagogy practices and standards. The number of action groups may be increased as needed. I'm grateful to Lola, Eric, Charlie for their leadership, and to all people working in the various action groups for the university. The next item is about plans beyond the current semester. As you have seen from one of the communications, all undergraduate instructions for the 2020 summer sessions 1 and 2 will be conducted remotely. There will be no high school or undergraduate research programs on campus for this summer because we expect that the faculty will be really busy to get back to their research. We are also closely monitoring and working on recruitment for the fall semester. The situation, as you can imagine, is very volatile, especially with international student recruitment. You may be called upon to help meeting potential students as we work on the years of the admitted students. I look forward to your participation and assistance. Finally, I want to say that we are all learning from the processes that we are currently experiencing. There are times that we need to make timely decisions that may not be perfect, in which case I want to ask for your patience and ideas. We aim to emerge from this crisis stronger than before. Again, thank you all for your support to our students and to the university. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have. Nancy, you are muted.
Yes, questions. Little blue hands. Axel, whoops.
Hello, I'm Ingvar. My question is the following. You mentioned focusing on research projects over the summer, and I wanted to ask about the message that recently went out to graduate students telling them that they would not be able to return to campus to continue research in labs. There's quite some anxiety there, both on the side of the graduate students as well as on the side of the faculty.
So that would be a discussion with Rich Reader and then with Eric. The courses will be offered online. For research, I do not recall whether that's communicated in the message.
Axel, let me just quickly say that actually we're preparing a message to go out to GPDs and supervisors, PIs, that gives a little more guidance about how graduate students and postdocs can operate outside the lab and stay working in productive ways on grants. But outside that, I would also second Minghua's recommendation that Rich address that. I also think we are still working under the strictures of a campus on lockdown. So, yeah.
So actually, this is a work in progress. The research action group will take this issue.
Okay.
Alec.
Hello. I was wondering if the task force, the emergency task force, has any plans, like a contingency plan, if the COVID-19 crisis lasts till fall and the fall classes are offered online.
So very good question. As you can imagine, we are thinking about this and it's being worked on. As we talk, as President Bernstein mentioned earlier too, that we are actually making some plans for this. And once the decision is made, it will be communicated to the campus community. At the moment, we are planning that normal life would resume in the fall, but we need to make contingency plans in the event, say, people cannot come back.
Okay, Thomas?
Good afternoon. I've spoken to a few students about the new pass no credit option that's being offered, and I've heard some of them express concerns that graduate programs might take some sort of negative inference that a student might opt into that perhaps they weren't doing so well in a class and they chose it to simply not show a bad grade as opposed to trying to deal with, you know, COVID issues that make class hard. And I was wondering if Stony Brook had any stances or changes that might be put out there to alleviate those fears.
So is Charlie Robin on the line? Charlie?
Well, I actually think this is more of a grad student question.
Okay.
So I think I'll try to take this one. So yeah, it's a difficult assessment for each graduate student to make, but I've encouraged all the students in all of my communications with them to work very closely with their advisor and with their faculty mentors to figure out what is best in each class for them and for their standing within a program. But one thing I should say is that we have made the decision that we are porting over academic status from fall 19 to fall 20. So whatever happens, positive or negative, this semester should not count against you as far as your academic standing is concerned. So we've tried everything we can within our power to limit that kind of negative effect. Individual programs, of course, you know, there are certain things that are outside of our control, but I think we've clearly sent the message that this semester is unusual. Students have tremendous leeway in trying to manage their the way they are being assessed at the graduate level. I hope that helps.
Yeah, so students will have the option to choose pass or no pass versus a later grade. To our graduate school, we certainly won't hold the student back because he or she chooses pass, no pass. To other schools, it's beyond our control. But I would imagine that they all know this is the period of crisis. Many universities are doing this. So I don't think this should be a big concern.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any last questions here? All right, then I am going to ask Ken Kashansky to join us.
Thanks, Nancy. Everybody can hear me?
Yep.
Good. So first of all, thank you, Michael, for the shout out at the beginning of your talk. On behalf of everyone at Stony Brook Medicine, it's been an interesting time. People are working very, very hard, and I can't say enough about our amazing physicians and staff. A couple of notes about the clinical situation today. For example, today we have about 400 patients who are documented as having COVID-19 or highly suspected to be having COVID-19, which represents about 2/3 of our entire normal hospital capacity. Well over 100 of those patients are in the intensive care unit, and just about 100 of them are on mechanical ventilation. There has been, well, right now we have about 20 or 25 ventilators left, so you've heard a lot about the shortage of ventilators. We're doing very, very good work at bringing more ventilators, and I'll tell you about an innovative way to bring more ventilators in a few moments. We are discharging patients. One day last week, we discharged 26 patients, which was a very, very good day. But unfortunately, I'll be honest, patients are passing away as well. We are seeing an increased curve of that happening. The usual length of stay for those patients who are unfortunate is about 15 days or so. So we're beginning to see that occurring. But I was just on a conference call with the governor and with the commissioner of health just about an hour or two ago. And in the city, they're actually seeing a flattening of the admissions curve. And some places, the number of patients admitted with COVID are going down. We have seen a flattening. I think the numbers in our hospital have been pretty flat for about 5 or 6 days, very slightly up, but much better in rate of climb than it had been in the past. We take nothing more seriously than the safety of our faculty and staff. You have heard about PPE, personal protective equipment, the shortages. We're actually doing better now. And also Michael mentioned bringing from Battelle to our campus a way to reuse, to sterilize those fancy, famous N95 masks and a number of other of our PPE. I won't talk about the Army Hospital because we're not sure on what will be in there. We're not sure who will staff it. We do know that it's going up quickly, and I sure hope we don't need to use it too heavily, because if we have to use it heavily, we know what that means. That's a bad sign. On the educational front, on the health science professional schools, first of all, the School of Medicine is graduating our senior students early, about 7 weeks early. We're having a virtual graduation in 2 days, and that's because our students were ready to be graduated and because we want them to work for Stony Brook University Hospital. And about half of them have signed up to work as assisting physicians in University Hospital for about 2 months before, a couple weeks before they head off to their internships and residencies. And so I'm very proud of our students for doing that. Now, I've been working with the deans in nursing and health technology and social welfare to try to do a similar thing in their senior classes to get them out early and working for this COVID epidemic. But their accrediting agencies have been rather recalcitrant. That's the nice word for it. So unfortunately, we've not been able to graduate our nurses earlier, our respiratory therapists, our physician's assistants early, unfortunately. All of the West Campus, all of the East Campus didactic courses are now online. They're going very well from what I understand. We've gotten a lot of software now to do anatomy, virtual anatomy as well. The experiential learning is a little more challenging for our students because it's hard to examine a patient and hear a heartbeat in a patient if you're doing it by telehealth. But as best we can, we're doing it by telehealth until the COVID crisis clears. Finally, I'll mention some highlights of the research side of the East Campus. As one might imagine, the COVID epidemic is full of opportunity to better understand this virus, better understand how to diagnose, better understand how to treat, and be innovative at the same time. And so right now, we either have in place or are just about to activate 6 different clinical trials for patients who don't quite have COVID-19 yet or have it at various stages. So for example, there's a drug called remdesivir. This is a drug that was designed during the Ebola epidemic to target that RNA virus. COVID-19, as you know, is also an RNA virus, and there's some suggestion that remdesivir is working, and we've already been enrolling patients on remdesivir. There is a strong bit of evidence to suggest that inflammation not only is a major part of COVID-19 pneumonia and other organ failure, but it could be the critical feature that is causing the downfall of these patients. And so there's also evidence that if you can tamp down the inflammation, you can make progress on treating COVID-19 pneumonia. And so that agent is called anti-interleukin 6. Interleukin 6 is a cytokine that causes severe inflammation. It has been used, this drug has been used in rheumatoid arthritis, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, for example. And so we have a clinical trial of anti-IL-6. Perhaps the most promising way to treat this, and this is therapies that go back to the 1890s. People treated diphtheria and a number of chronic, acute infectious diseases with plasma or serum. And so today, like in 1890, we are looking for people who have had COVID-19, or at least were viral positive, test their blood for antibodies to COVID-19, and if they have a high level of antibodies, collect their plasma and give it to COVID-19 patients. And that study, we hope, will go live tomorrow. And then two more studies in, you've probably heard a lot about hydroxychloroquine plus or minus azithromycin. It's been mentioned at the White House with a little difference of opinion. It's been mentioned in a lot of quarters. As you probably know, there was a run on hydroxychloroquine, and the state has clamped down. No one's allowed to have any unless it's for malaria prophylaxis, which is what it's supposed to be for. We've been working with the State Department of Health, and just about an hour ago, I was on a conference call with Grace Wong at SUNY Central to coordinate 2 clinical trials that we want to launch. One clinical trial is using those drugs to prevent healthcare workers from developing COVID-19. We have had a lot of our healthcare workers develop the viral infection. Fortunately, no one's terribly sick, but we're like into the 170 numbers of people who have developed the virus. Most of them are healthy again and are coming back to work. But can we prevent it? And then the second one is, can we prevent the progression? People who already have COVID-19, either they're outpatients and so they're not terribly sick. Can we prevent them from having to come into the hospital? People who are already in the hospital, can we prevent them from having to go to the ICU and get intubated? And then finally, wearables. Of course, big data and wearables. Can we get enough physiologic data from very sophisticated wearables and then use deep learning algorithms to be able to predict how, who, and when they actually develop the symptoms and signs of COVID-19, again, in high-risk individuals. And then finally, I'll end with some innovative stuff that we're doing. The School of Medicine, the School of Health Technology and Management, and the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences are doing together. One of the first things in the PPE world was we were running out of those face shields. The engineering school was able to design a face shield, use 3D printing, and temporarily bridge our need for face shields. More recently, ventilators are in short supply. The College of Engineering, working with our pulmonary docs, have created splitters, as they're called, where you might have to use 1 ventilator for 2 patients. They've successfully created a device that allows us to do that. And most innovative of all is to create a new ventilator. And both the splitter and the new ventilator have been designed, have been fabricated, prototypes created, and now tested in animals. And now we're trying to get FDA, emergency FDA approval to begin to think about using it in people. So that's where we are, the clinical, the educational, the research, and the innovative stuff we're doing on the East Campus through this epidemic. Happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Questions? I see Ed. Ed Feldman? Ed?
Oh, there you are. It says
Yeah.
I was muted by you, Nancy, is what it says on my screen.
I was trying to unmute.
Two things. One is I wanted to thank you for your comprehensive report to the Senate. This was a similar report that you sent to the medical staff on East Campus, but it was very useful to see the detail in that report. That was very helpful. My question really is about our patients on vents. And can you talk about, I mean, there's some report in the news about people being on ventilators with COVID longer than people had been on ventilators before. And what's our success at getting people extubated once they've been put on a vent?
So all good questions. First, there's a wide range of people, the duration on the ventilator. Some people get off the ventilator within the week. Some people now have been on the ventilator for in excess of 2 weeks. That has been the general experience with this epidemic. They seem to, it's a very different kind of infection. It's a very severe pneumonia. We have had lots of patients get extubated. I think this morning I heard we had extubated 4 or 6 patients. I'm not certain of that number, but every day we have a report at 9 o'clock and we find out who has been admitted, who's been transferred to the ICU, and then the really good part of the report is who's been extubated, who's been downgraded to an intermediate care bed, and who has been extubated. So that is happening, but as I also mentioned, some unfortunate people are passing away with this disease. I have been watching what the condition of those patients who have passed away very carefully. And there are very rare people who have passed away at Stony Brook University Hospital who didn't have a whole slew of health problems when they were admitted to the hospital: diabetes, COPD, asthma, other lung diseases. So we're seeing those unfortunate patients coming in with a lot of pathology to begin with.
Hey, Karen Masterson.
Hi, Ken, thanks for the great information. I have a question about your hydroxychloroquine studies. I'm wondering if you could just explain a little bit how you're setting them up. Will they be double-blind and randomized? And do you have an N yet? Do you know how the number of patients that will be involved? And do you have a sense of when your results will be available? And then the last question is, do you have any experience using hydroxychloroquine as of yet, or are you just going to use it for the study?
Well, when I went to Africa, I took it as malaria prophylaxis, but other than, and I've taken a Z-Pack, so I've taken azithromycin too. No, we don't have experience in using these drugs for this purpose, for COVID-19, but no one else did either. So the design, those two types of studies, the study in actual inpatients or outpatients to try to prevent them from becoming inpatients, that we're treating everybody. We know they have COVID-19, and so it's not a randomized, it's a historical control study. The other study in healthcare workers who are at high risk for developing infection is a randomized study. It's hard, we don't have, because this was obviously a more quickly developed study, we don't have placebo pills. We have the drugs, but we don't have good placebo pills, so we can't make it placebo. But it is going to be a randomized study into 3 groups. 400, to your other question, 400 patients are getting H and A, 400 patients are getting H, and 400 individuals are not getting anything, standard of care. And we're watching to see, who gets infected, who doesn't get infected, by monitoring them and looking at swabs and looking at serum. So those are the 2 studies. And like I said, I was on a conference call with SUNY Central, and I think they liked the study. And it turns out, I learned that the Gates Foundation is thinking about a very, very similar study, but we'll beat them to the patients. And given the number of patients we have and the number of healthcare workers we have who are at high risk for infection, I'm pretty confident that within a month or two, we will have the results.
So sorry, so you have, this is 400, 400, 400 in the 3 groups who are coming into the hospital.
Right. And then 400 and 400 in the other study, 400, the observational study, 400 who are, outpatients, and we watch to see if they become inpatients, 400 who are inpatients, and we see if they go to the ICU.
Okay, Thomas Sanford.
Hello. This is not a question. I was just hoping you could pass congratulations on to Dr. Farkas and Dr. Scott Weingart. While working in the city, I've heard many physicians at other hospitals discussing their website and their work on EMCrit, HomeCrit, and I think it's, despite the unfortunate way it's happened, it's done a good job of increasing the knowledge of Stony Brook and Stony Brook medicine throughout the country.
Thank you. On their behalf.
Okay, other questions? I'm having some trouble.
Nancy, this is Jonathan Sanders. I have a question for Ken. Ken, this all sounds quite fascinating, especially the studies you're doing. Are you doing something to trace and follow these either with still photographs or video? I know you've got HIPAA problems sometimes, but particularly with the staff people. Yeah, with the staff people, it's probably not as big a hurdle. I think there's so much interest in this, and to have some real science done by real scientists, I think it would be invaluable to have somebody assigned to follow this with a video recording, so that at some point, if you turn something up or you can say something definitive on the national scene, it would be of public use and public benefit.
I'll talk to our communications people. I'll talk to various people. It's an interesting thought.
Okay, we got a bunch of questions, so let's try to get through them, and we're going to go a little over time. Josh? Now.
Hi, Ken. Thank you I want to extend thanks to all of the healthcare workers who are heroically doing what they're doing. But let me ask a question about the convalescent plasma. Yeah, I'm a molecular biologist, so
I knew that was where that was coming from.
The convalescent plasma. So because I'm a professor at Stony Brook, I constantly get asked by friends and family and neighbors who are recovering if they can go to Stony Brook and donate. And I don't know the answer yet. Has this scaled up? And if so, can you spread contact information? Can we advertise this?
Yes, so we are going to go live. As I said, the IRB has our proposed protocol. If they grant us IRB approval tomorrow, which we think might happen, then we are in fact going to start advertising. Absolutely.
Okay, Alec Lewis.
Hi, how are you, Dr. Kalshansky?
Alec?
I just have a question. How many doctors or, assistant physicians are going to be added by the seniors graduating early? And also, I asked Dr. Bernstein this question earlier. Do you have any information you could share about the 21 confirmed cases of COVID-19 at Stony Brook University?
I cannot, the answer to the second is I cannot confirm on those 21 cases either. The newly graduated physicians, we have, I think, 50 or 60 of them who have signed up and are going to be working at University Hospital, mostly caring for our not ICU patients, but our regular ward 300 COVID-19 patients. Because we have other emergent patients in the hospital, but most of our hospital now, as I said earlier, is COVID-19.
Okay, a guest, I don't have your name, so I'm just going to unmute you.
Carolyn Cuby.
Oh, wow, you're not a guest. Hi,
I'm not a guest. I don't know why I came up with my other sign on, but it did. I just want to ask Dr. K, I want to say thank you for your leadership and the leadership of of everyone at University Hospital. And I'm very proud of my members, the way that they have really stood up and taken everything.
So am I.
I wanted to ask you specifically about the 15-minute test for the COVID, the Abbott test that came out. Are we going to get that?
So we haven't been, Abbott turned down our request for it, but we have a very rapid plasma assay for antibodies as well. The FDA just approved it because we were part of the validation of the test. They gave us like 25,000 free assays. So that's what we're using for the plasma assessment. That's what we're using for some of these other clinical trials.
Okay, great. And they're going to be, is that testing going to be available to staff at all to see who's
Well, we want the staff to sign up for post-convalescence plasma donations. So
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, Tom.
Yes. Hi. Kudos from me as well. Quick question is: so how fast is the test that you have now? I remember asking you a month ago, when are you going to get tests? I'm glad you have them now. How quick is the test that you're using now?
So first, let me clarify. There are two tests, right? There's the test for the virus, which is still the nasal swab. It's a PCR-based assay, and we still have a very limited number of those tests in University Hospital, maybe 40 or 50 a day at best, because we are very reagent limited there. Most of our COVID-19, our SARS-CoV-2 assays are still going out with a 2 or 3 day turnaround time. For all the people going through the parking lot, all the people coming in the ED, most of them we're not doing it. For our healthcare workers, for our, our own people, we're trying to reserve those in-house tests so we get a much more rapid answer that day. The other test we're talking about is the serum or plasma assay, where we're looking for antibodies. That's a very fast test, just a couple of hours. But of course, that won't tell you, if you're sick, because it takes 8, 10, 12 days to develop those antibodies. So it'll tell you if you've had it. It probably won't tell you you're developing it.
So Ken, I have a question from someone from the chat room. Can you give us the number of people admitted to the hospital for COVID? Again, I think you may have mentioned it.
Today, let me look at my cheat sheet. 395 people either have clearly documented COVID-19 or are highly suspicious. We call them PUI, person under investigation. And because it takes 2 or 3 days to get most of those test results back, we don't know if they really are or are not yet, but they have been ruled out for influenza and other respiratory viruses at that point.
Okay, thank you, Ken. I've been asked by an attendee to unmute so that we can all give you a round of applause, not just for you, but all your healthcare. So please.
I'll take that for everybody on our side of campus. Everyone's part of this team.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to move us along. Sorry for the other hands, but we need to finish our last bit of business. First, I just, oh gosh. I'm just trying to mute everybody.
Why can't I hear?
Yeah, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
We are open for nominations. You have 10 days to submit another name for the position of Secretary Treasurer. Sarah Battaglia has been nominated, but other nominations are welcome. Same with, we have 3 statewide senators who represent Stony Brook at the SUNY University Faculty Senate. 3 positions available. So if you want to nominate yourself or someone else, send an email to me or to Pam. If I could just quickly ask Carolyn to come back, anything quick from the UUP East Campus, and then Jeff, if you're still on the line, I'll ask you to do the same for West Campus. Carolyn.
Oh, hi. Quickly, really, we've kind of suspended everything because we're in such a state of flux over on the HSC side. Educationally, most of the schools are all working from home remotely and doing remote learning. I will try to eventually have some virtual workshops in the end of April. And a lot of the people in the hospital right now have been redeployed and moved around. So we're hoping that once that settles down a little bit, we'll have some workshops at the hospital as well. But for most part, we're just in the COVID state of mind. So
Yeah,
it's been busy.
Understandable. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Jeff.
Hi, can you hear me,
Yeah.
everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Yeah, thank you. So Ed Quinn couldn't be here today, so he asked me to give a report for UUP Stony Brook West chapter. In the past, I guess, 5 or 6 weeks, we fielded hundreds of requests or issues from our members. And so I really want to give a shout out to the Communications Committee, Membership Committee, and the Grievance and Workplace Concerns Committee who've been managing a lot of these requests. The top main issues that have come up, I'm glad to report that many of them have been resolved, but people have been asking for more frequent and communication from the president's office. People were asking for more clarification on essential and non-essential personnel. People wanted more maximization of work at home type policies. A lot of these things have happened over the past few weeks, and so we're very glad to see that that's been the case. A few more of the asks that are still out there regard hazard pay for those essential employees who are still working on campus. We'd also, another ask we have out there that's both for management and also we're making at the statewide level is to renew part-time lecturers and full-time lecturers, other contingent faculty for the fall. They've especially gone above and beyond in the transition to online education in the course of the past few weeks, often for the few $1,000s salary they get per course. I also wanted to say that during the crisis when the students were leaving, had to leave the dormitories. There were about 50 or 60, maybe a bit more than that, graduate students who were without housing for a temporary period of time. And the union members partnered with the GSO, and we found temporary storage for them, temporary housing for them in the meantime. And so again, in the same, so these are the kinds of things that we've been involved in. One of the things I'd like to mention as the VP for Academics and the Chair of the Academic Council, we've been meeting regularly now for a few weeks, faculty, to talk about concerns with respect to online education, both in the sort of crisis transition we're doing and also preparing for the future. And we very much would like to work with the Senate, with the committees of the Senate, such as the Faculty Rights and Responsibilities Committee, with the Provost's Office, which has the, excuse me, which is preparing for the future. We're also talking about the future, what's going to happen in the fall with the governor's announcement last week about the budget. And so I think it would be great if faculty can come together in all these different stakeholder groups and find a way to work with administration and with all the other stakeholders to promote and advocate for education, public education at the state level and beyond. And the last thing I want to say is that with respect to compensation, another issue that's come up is with people working overtime, especially IT staff, and again, the adjuncts. And so we got a message from Fred Cullo, president of UUP today, just encouraging everybody to make sure they document the extra work that they're doing. Statewide at UUP is trying to negotiate compensation, especially for IT workers and others. And so make sure you document things in the event that compensation becomes available at a future date for all the extra work that you've been putting in. I think I covered everything. If maybe if anyone else has anything else they want to say, they can jump in. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff and Carolyn. Okay, we're at 5:11 now. So any last questions? I'm sure there's a lot you have left to say, but
I move we adjourn.
okay, I'm all in favor. Do I hear? Oh, Alec wants to ask a question, so let's hear, and then we'll adjourn. Alec.
Hi, I'm sorry I've been asking so many questions.
That's all right.
But I just wanted to know if anybody had any status, this is probably to Dr. Kashansky, how the temporary hospital at Stony Brook University is going to operate?
So we're not sure. We're not getting the best communications from the Army Corps of Engineers. They designed it, started building it before they asked anyone on our side of campus what we need it for. We have been told that it will not be for COVID-19 patients. It'll be for the region to offload their non-COVID-19 patients, freeing up more room in the existing hospitals. They said that about the Javits Center, and of course, no one sent any patients, and so now the Javits Center is taking COVID-19 patients.
Real quick, may I
Yes.
I might want to interrupt just for a second, because you maybe. So this is I'm sorry, Ken. I don't want to, but I just feel like this is sort of a moving thing today. And so in terms of which patients will be there and which will not.
That's what I was going to say, Judy. Exactly that. We just do not know.
But we're working very closely with the New York State and their representatives to work this through. So I think that this will all start to come together in the next couple of days.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Wait. Do you think that, is any Stony Brook University hospital staff going to be working there at the temporary hospital, or is it all going to be outside staff?
We are not certain of that either. It's
All
a
right.
work in progress, as they say.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, that's it. I'm going to say thank you very much. I know this wasn't the most pleasant way to have a meeting, but we did it. I think we got a lot of good information, some good discussion. And so see you in May.
Thank you very much,
Take
Nancy.
care.
Thank you.